In today's video, we're going to be talking about how it might actually be more dangerous to give your kids social media than it would be to give them a gun. Well, how's it going, guys? Welcome to another episode of Coffee Talk. And in this series, I like to talk about all things fatherhood, faith, and freedom. From right here in my little tiny cabin on wheels on what we're calling the Hopeful Homestead, a little 21-acre farm that we're going to be setting up over the next year as we build our forever home here. And like I said, I like to sit in this cabin, drinking coffee, talking to all the dads and husbands out there that are going through stuff in life, and we talk about some of the hard topics and maybe give a little bit of advice and talk in the comments on how to improve our lives as husbands and dads. So if that interests you, consider sticking around and subscribing. But today, I wanted to talk about something that I've had a pretty solid opinion on from early stages of being a parent. I've got a 9-year-old and a 3-year-old. And you might be saying, what the heck? And your thumbnail, your title of this video, it's a little bit crazy. And it might not actually be that crazy if you think about it. Because in reality, just like you wouldn't give your child a gun and send them out into the world with it loaded, without any training, without any perspective, without any teaching, you would never do that. That would be idiotic. Some people would never even give their kid a gun at all under any circumstances. And now my kids, being that we're out in a more rural area, I've taken my 9-year-old out to our little shooting range in the back of the property here, and I've started teaching her how to shoot a little bit. Started off with BB guns so that she got the general premises of how to handle a weapon, and then moved up to that little .22 revolver that I showed you guys in the thumbnail. That was the first gun she ever shot, and she loved it. And I from a young age, want to instill the responsibility of firearm ownership and handling in my kids. And so just like how you wouldn't give your kid a firearm and tell them to go out into the world, why would you give your kid a device that has a connection to every possible evil out there without any sort of guidance or coaching or protection or supervision or nothing? It's mind-boggling to me the amount of people that give their 6-year-olds a cell phone. You start getting into the 10+ range where they're 10 years old and up. There's some gray area there. It depends on the kid, how responsible the kid is, what your relationship with the kid is like. There's a lot of variables here, and I'm not judging anybody on their decisions. Everybody parents in different ways. I'm just giving some advice on my perspective. And so there's 2 pointers that I wanted to really make about this, in addition to what I've already said. Back before Claire, my 9-year-old, was born, I saw an article that had, it was about a study that was done, and of course I don't remember all the details of where the study was done or who conducted it and all that, but it was legit. And this study was showcasing how they used mice in a lab to flash red, green, and blue lights. It's similar to the amount of light that's coming from our device screens at a close distance to the mice in this maze with cheese. And this study showed that mice that were exposed to the flashing red, blue, and green lights close up to their face were much more likely to lose all interest in even trying to find the cheese, and they became almost addicted to watching these flashing lights, whereas mice that had a greater distance from the red, blue, and green lights also had an aversion to wanting to find the cheese, but eventually they would lose interest in the red, blue, and green lights, and they'd start to go find the cheese. And then obviously the group of mice that were not exposed to the lights at all immediately found the cheese. They were tenacious for finding the cheese. And they also broke it down on ages of mice too, younger mice versus older mice. And the younger the mice were and also exposed to the lights were affected at a greater rate. And so this study was showing that, in a way, if we are giving our kids devices that have this flashing light close to their face all the time, so it's different than just having them, because I grew up as a 90s kid watching TV all the time, and I didn't have any problem. So some people might be saying, oh, there's nothing wrong with having your kid watch stuff all the time. Well, that might be true when you're sitting there in a living room watching at a distance from a TV. This study was showing that there is a greater effect when you're actually holding the light source in close proximity to your face, and especially for younger kids. I always knew when we had Claire, our 9-year-old, I thought, I'm not going to let her really ever have a personal handheld device, even if it's our phones, until she's at least 5. In my mind, I thought, she's 5, she's starting school, going off to school, maybe they'll be using tablets in school for learning, so there's a natural course of reasoning for starting to introduce the technology into her life, and it's associated with a purpose rather than it just being from birth a way to occupy your mind. And so that's what we did with Claire, and it's proven to be good with her. At least she has her own iPad now that we let her use in controlled doses. We let her use it for 30-minute stints. She does not have any social media. She just uses it for the purpose of playing some games, some innocent stuff, and we have a good relationship with her about making sure that she doesn't try to hide anything with it. And obviously we check the iPad all the time and, you know, or stand on top of what she's doing on it. And in my opinion, to me, when it comes to a device, and then like especially a phone, like, you know, iPad or something, a tablet is different. It's bigger. It's really a household item or something you're using. You have to be more deliberate in using it. You're not just casually pulling out a phone and checking it all the time because a phone is so easy and pocketable. In my mind, a phone is the most dangerous thing because you can set up you have connected to an iPad. You can have it to be where it's not connected to the internet unless it's hooked up to Wi-Fi. So a phone is always connected. There's always that intrusion of the world on your children's perspective if you're giving them a phone. And so in my mind, I relate the responsibility and freedom to having a phone and social media accounts to being equivalent to the responsibility and freedom that you have when you get a driver's license. So, you know, if you're old enough and mature enough and can prove you can work towards and be responsible enough to drive a vehicle and go out into the physical world and be relied upon to be responsible and safe in how you drive, where you go, what you do in your own private time at 16 years old, then in my mind, that's equivalent to having a device that lets you go out into the digital world. But in my mind, I'm not going to give my kids their own phone. And, you know, like I said, other people can do what they want. But in my mind, I'm gonna link the freedom to a phone and social media accounts to the freedom to having a driver's license. It's the same level of responsibility and maturity. Being that I still can take that car away, take those keys away. If you abuse that gift and responsibility, same thing with the phone. I'm gonna check it regularly to make sure that no nefarious activities going on. And that's about all you can do, I guess, you know, as a parent. And at least by the time they're 16, 17 years old, they've had a chance to mature. You've developed a really good relationship with them through good parenting, to where you can lead them through that with a little bit more grace and expertise, I guess you could say. But getting back to the premise of social media specifically, I'm talking more about the devices here, but obviously if you give your kids social media at a young age where they can create their own accounts and have YouTube accounts and have Facebook accounts, Instagram, you know, TikTok, all this stuff, the amount of times in public I see what look like 6, 7, 8-year-olds doing TikTok videos where you can tell they're on TikTok. I'm just like, man, you're either willfully, as a parent, you're either willfully naive, like, because at this point it's pretty obvious that there's some negativity and bad influence through those things that you can't filter. So either you have to be completely ignorant and naive, or just willfully turning a blind eye to what could be there because it's too difficult to deal with. It's too difficult to parent and to go through the phone, to have those difficult conversations, to take it away if they're abusing it. It's hard to do those things. So that's why I don't even want to introduce it until my kids are at an older age that are, you know, and I can explain it to them. It's not arbitrary. It's saying, once you're responsible enough to have a driver's license and drive out into the world, you're responsible enough to have a phone and go out into the digital world. So I tried to base a lot of my decisions as a parent off of hard knowledge and studies, and in addition to some intuition as well, you know, from firsthand personal experience with social media and devices. I'm rambling too much, not drinking enough coffee here, but that's my perspective on it. Hopefully this video provides a little bit of a roadmap on what you can do, and let me know in the comments what you guys do. If any of you are dads out there, what do you do? How have you parented your kids with technology? I would like to know, and we can share that down below so that everybody can talk about it, because it's a difficult subject and a difficult thing to manage. But thanks for being here, guys. I appreciate it as always. Consider subscribing and sticking around. Again, this is The Hopeful Homestead. My name is Chad Ainsworth. Thanks for being here, and I'll see you in the next one. Later.